Everybody, thank you very much for joining us at the planter sessions. That noise in the background you can hear is someone outside in Derek's yard, like looking after his yard. But while someone looks after the yard outside, we're going to talk about breaking into your community right here and right now. As Geneva Push does every month here at the planter sessions, we pick a different topic to do with church planting and we dive right into it. Before Derek introduces our special guests today, Chris and Stephen, just a very quick plug for those who sponsor the planter sessions every month. EA Insurance. As I say every month, if you join us every month, you'll know the spiel, and I hope you don't just know the spiel, but you've gone off and done what I've suggested you go and do, which is go to EA Insurance, because if you haven't thought about the insurance needs of your church plant, you really need to start it with a chat with EA Insurance. They specialize in church insurance, risk management services, and not-for-profit organizations, so you need to have a chat with them. And now, before I do hand over to Derek, who's going to lead us through our session today with Chris and Stephen, two quick things. If you want to see the lovely faces of Derek, Chris, and Steve even bigger on your screen, you can either go full screen, or to make the video pane wider, just click on the bottom right-hand corner and drag down. Now, Derek's got a whole bunch of questions for Chris and Stephen today. He's going to get through those in probably the first half hour or so, and then it's over to you guys. We'd love to hear from you, your questions that you have for Chris and Stephen on this topic of breaking into your community. Any questions you've got, please use the chat panel in front of you on your viewing pane. You should be able to see an icon that looks a little bit like a message bubble. Click on that. There's a chat window opens up. Send questions through to me. I'm Ben McAlpine, but I'm filed under host. So send all questions to me. I'll get them on to Derek, and he will pass them on to Chris and Steve, which is what I'm about to do, gentlemen. Derek, I'll hand it over to you. Get us underway for breaking into your community.
Thanks, Ben. Good to have Chris and Steve with us today. So the topic today, as Ben said, is breaking into our community. And really, we're looking into the areas of how important this is to planters as they plant, how it is we can do it better, what factors hold people back from doing it well, and picking the brains of Steve, who's over in Perth, and Chris, who is up in Forster, who I might introduce to you now. Now, Chris, you submitted, as people could when they register for this, you put in the line, I see you've lined up the really smart guy and the dumb bogan for this webinar. Now, look, I don't think you should be speaking about our friends in Perth like that. But just do you want to tell us a little bit about Forster, about what church is like for you, what community is like there for you?
Yeah, so Forster's about 3 hours north of Sydney on the coast, and it's a holiday town with a large retirement population. Not many kind of 18 to 30-year-olds who've left town to go get work. So church kind of reflects that kind of demographic. It's got a very seasonal feel, the whole town, and so does church life. It's kind of big and busy in summer, and then it's quite quiet in winter, and it starts to come to life again in spring. So first day of spring today, new life, happy days. Looking forward to a bit of that.
Nice. And how long have you been in Forster?
I've been here for 7 years now.
Okay.
7 years. So we moved up here with 6 other friends from Narrabeen in Sydney.
Nice. And Steve, you're over the other side of the country, over in Perth. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how long you've been there, what church is like for you, which church you're at?
Yeah, look, we've lived in this area for 17 years. I worked in a church further east in the hills. Now, we literally are in the last street of suburbia, our house. And so that's the dividing line for Perth. So it's on the east, which isn't as long as the north-south corridors, but it seems further away because it's in the hills, so to speak. So Midland is it's one of the oldest establishments in Perth on the river, from the Swan River. White working class and biggest indigenous population in Western Australia outside of the northwest, and two very separate kind of communities. And it's now starting to get more of a multicultural feel, I suppose. You're starting to see Sudanese and Somalis move into the area because the housing's a bit cheaper, and it's on the train line, and it's got a big a centre that's I guess it's like a little city because it's got everything in it because it's the first stop from the wheat belt of Western Australia on your way to Perth. So it had every factory, every farmer need, everything that you need you can get in Midland. Church has been a difficult thing in Midland. So there'd been the mainline denominations which have been dying off, a few smaller Pentecostal churches which have struggled, but very few Bible teaching, evangelistically oriented or churches at all. So when we planted this, it was a let's see how it goes kind of thing, because it didn't seem to fit. It's never been a place that's had that fit for this kind of church.
Okay, so just stay with you, Steve, for a second. So when you this phrase breaking in that we're using for the webinar, when you planted and you thought about breaking into the community, what kind of framework have you got there? What are you thinking as you're thinking, you're planning, you want to see the gospel go out? What does breaking in look like for you? Well,
for me, it looks probably a little bit more indigenous, as in local, than it has ended up being. We planted household congregation. We weren't planning on planting anything because Providence in the city had asked us to go and work there, but a few people became Christian out here, so we planted into our house. I think we quickly noticed that people where we live would be very suspicious of coming to your house for church. So there are a lot of old church buildings around from the main lines that are probably empty, but people would recognise that as church more than they would recognise going to your house. It's just a strong working class, football loving kind of, community with, and maybe Chris will be here because this is Bogan land, and everyone laughs at Midland because it's the Bogan territory, and it's quite a confronting place if you don't live here. If you're western suburbs, Perth is the western suburbs is the same as the eastern suburbs in Sydney, for example. It would be quite confronting. It's quite angular, and to reach people here, you just have to you've got to be a little bit of all things to everyone and be able to not be that middle class kind of evangelical church that we've come to know and love, I suppose. And we do reflect that even in our leadership. We've got a couple of guys who are much more from a strong working class background.
And so, Chris, you were a parachute plant from Narrabeen, Steve, with a few other families. You obviously had to break ground, like you had to do things in order to establish yourself because you didn't have a building, you were new in the place. What were you thinking as you kind of went in and tried to break into Forster?
Yeah, so we moved up in January with two other couples and another younger fella, and we really had to get busy breaking in because we didn't know anyone. We didn't know anyone in the town, so we just sort of committed to trying to get to know as many people as quick as we can, and so we all joined like whatever sport we played, joined a sporting team, and my wife had just had our first child, so she joined a mother's group, and our mission was just to try and just make friends, connect relationally with as many as quick as we could, and those who we connected with, we knew that particularly if they'd been local for a while, as in 50 years or whatever it takes to be a local around here, we haven't worked it out yet, then when you meet the local people, then they are connected with everyone. So connect with as many locals as we can, so then we're connected to everyone.
Yeah, yeah. And Steve, you mentioned that you did meet in houses when you first met. How did you, living in Midlands, what things do people do that you went and did with them, or was it relational connections?
Well, obviously there's a school connection. Because we've lived here for a long time, we knew a lot of people here. So there are people on the fringe who look at us and think, that's interesting. A lot of our people, so we've got a good core group who have good connections with other people, and that's been good. So school has been the primary one, I think. My daughter goes to a Christian private school with my son, but went to the local government school, which my son still goes to. I also run a running group, training guys and girls who run. So there's been a few connections recently there that a few guys have said they'd like to come along to church. Funny enough, a couple of lapsed Catholic people. Lapsed Catholics in running, it must be a thing. But but I think it's the long-term stuff of, I do know, it's, everyone says no one knows their neighbours. I actually know all my neighbours really well because I've lived in the same place. They don't have a strong connection with us as far as church is concerned. But when we started meeting in a building, we started to get people who had been non-church for 4 or 5 years coming along. Or I've lived in this area for a while and, have thought about church again but haven't done it. And when we went to a building, which we did fortnightly and then weekly, it sort of exponentially changed things, I think, and it gave our people a base, because I think we do want to establish Midland as a hub to which we could send out from, and that will take a while, but it's getting to that place, I think.
Okay. So when you were getting off the ground, what are you balancing all the other things that you do? You're leading a church and you're planning a church, teaching the Bible, organising small groups, everything else that goes on with it. What priority did you take, or did you push, or how did you speak about it to those who you were planning with and those in your church about getting out and into the community and building those connections and making your church your own?
I guess you just start by saying we're missionaries in Midland. It's an area that needs mission. We did door knock and have conversations at the train station with about 3,000 houses we went around, and had conversations with people. And in a strong working class suburb, that can be kind of confronting if you look like I do. But we're going to do it again, because I think what we...
That's why you're trained to be a runner.
Yeah, that's right. I need to run. Yeah. I only have to run as fast as one other person with me. And it was a case of we found that connections with people moving in new from different countries, people were more open to talking about the gospel. But for all of it, we didn't get much fruit from that of people attending or engaging. But we've kept relationships with people. We've also linked up with the Anglican Church here in Midland has got an Evangelical rector, and they do food distribution stuff. Some of our people involved in that and getting to know people through that. My wife also runs a clinical psych practice in Midland, so she's fairly well known in the area at business level. But I found this a hard suburb to break into, just because there's a deep suspicion, I think, of the church thing in this area, to be honest.
Yeah. Chris, can you share with us some of the things that you tried? So you mentioned you joined sporting groups. You got to know people as much as you can. As a leader in the church, what were you encouraging people towards? How did you make the first thing, or focus people's gifts? Sorry.
Yeah, the first thing was trying to help our people have an eye to the unbeliever, to see people as they're either a brother or sister who needs encouraging, or they're a lost person who needs the gospel. There's only two kinds of people that we meet. So just kind of helping our church develop that mindset that every person needs something about Jesus, either to mature them or to save them. And so seeing ourselves as local missionaries, and then trying to model what does that look like. So prayerfulness, being prayerful for particular guys that I've been meeting and sharing and asking for prayer for those guys from the other people, asking them who they're praying for, and encouraging them to be intentional with their relationship. So stuff like, I don't know, we talked about being frequent flyers that just go to one cafe, get to know the staff there, and or go through the same checkout, get to know the same checkout chick. Just be frequent flyers as best as you can to build genuine friendships. Don't try and fake it. Like, there was no point in me kind of joining the local surf lifesaving club, because I don't care about surfing. I like fishing. So don't try and be, hoax. Like, you got to connect where you're naturally going to, and it's got to be. The sense is not people are our project or target. There's people we love because we've been loved by God, and kind of helping people see other people how God sees them. Lots of people needing saved.
Can I just pick up on what you said there? Steve, feel free to come into this as well. But both Chris and Steve, can I pick up on that language? Because you don't want people, as you said, you don't want people feeling like they need to pick a project, like it's a pity project. And so what language do you use around that in order to infuse in people, to get people thinking about the lost and not just a project they'll move on to in 6 months from?
That's a good question.
One simple thing is just, I think, talking about people's mates, not their non-Christian mates. They're just their mates, and you love your mates, and you want your mates to get to know Jesus. So trying to not, label them like that, and speaking well. If you speak well about their mates to them when they're at church, they obviously don't. You can't talk about people's non-Christian mates. You just welcome in people's friends.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I think our women have been really good at just long-term, low-key relational stuff with other mums, and I think because we have a mix, we do have middle-class people in our church who work in the city, and we have much more tradie kind of people who work around this area. We got everything from welders, AMBO officers, through to the industrial relations consultant for the AMA, Australian Medical Association. And so what we're saying is, and I think Herdy's right when he was talking about at one stage, how do we're not sprinklers, we're not just sprinklers where we spread the water out over a grassed area. We're those little thin pipes of water that run to the plant. And so there are neighbour mates, and then there's work mates. And how do you as a community, and this is what we'd say, is the church itself is a witness to the world, not just there to witness to the world, but how do we try to be a little bit open as a community so that when we do things, and we've done this quite well where we have couples for meals together and someone else who's invited, couples that are invited that aren't Christians. And that's not a bait and switch, as Chris is saying. It's not a, how do we, see them as our project. It's just trying to naturalize God's kingdom that it leaches into other people's lives. They see it, and our hope smells different, I think. That's the way I'd put it.
Yeah, that's good. Our hope smells different. I like that one. Now, we've just had just a follow-up question from Matt in the audience. So he's asking, and if you want to ask questions, just send them to Ben, who's the host, and he'll kind of filter them through. We'll get to ask Chris and see that. He's asking, based on what Chris was saying, the expected in-church responsibilities, which you've got to ask people to do. So you've got to run growth group, whatever you run for that, kids ministry, running services. How do you balance that with the freedom to allow people just the time to connect with their friends and family, and people around them who are lost?
Yeah.
How do you balance that?
For us, when we moved to town, the seven adults who moved to town with us, we're all unemployed pretty much, so we had heaps of time. And part of the thing they had to do is try and find work, and so they got to meet lots of people trying to find a job in a town where there's not much work. And so because they didn't have existing commitments in town, we basically had seven missionaries here. So the in-church commitments, kind of everyone was doing everything. The guys who kicked off our kids' church and my wife Sharon, who looked after the creche, they didn't get to come into a service for 2 years, because every week for 2 years they're doing the kids' stuff. And that was a cost that they were prepared to pay, and they could do it because their life wasn't full. There was, mate, we're all just here with an empty plate ready to go. And so they were a real team of soldiers, and so we had nothing else to do. We had nothing else to do except ministry in the church and be on mission, and that was just sweet. But we worked really hard, but we're probably in a different kind of.
So now, as you're a bit more established, you've probably got a few more structures you've got to kind of uphold each week. Have you felt a drift in that away from the freedom?
not really, because where we live, there's no commute to work. Most people don't have like excessive workloads in the workforce, so and with zero commuting time, everything's kind of 5-10 minutes away, or if you work in Taree, maybe half hour. But so people have time, which is a beautiful thing. So we have a huge kind of percentage of volunteerism in the church. So about 80% of people who would call Coast DC home are involved in ministries, and over 80% involved in a weekly home group. So because of the I don't know, there's less pressure life-wise here, so people have more time. So once they buy in, they've got heaps of time.
Yeah,
different to Narrabeen, where I come from.
Yeah, ours is different to that, I suppose. Because we're at the end of the train line, people do need to commute, or a lot of tradies are like plumbers and things, and they're working for themselves. But to be honest, we're kind of counterintuitive at the moment. We're stripping away stuff to basic church, and we're probably going to go to 2 congregations. We need to because of the size of the building. But we're almost, we're creating a lot of white space for our people. So our primary way of doing church next year, and this is a secret so no one can know, is going to be church on Sunday. So half of discipline is turning up, and getting that non-consumer mentality into the Christians to begin with. And then our second, once a month, we're going to have 7 or 8 families will host 15 different people from the church and anyone who else wants to come for a meal. So we're actually cutting back on here's our small group process, because we've had a bit of ghosting happening. So we get a lot of people, because, oh, you're a new church in the area, well, come. And you get people that go, oh, we've been to 5 different churches in the last 6 years, but we're going to stay here forever. And I just go, you're a serial monogamist, you're not going to stay. So we're pitching towards our strong communities and setting the bar low enough that people who are new can come to a once-a-month meal. They can come to church, and then once a month we get both our congregations together for what I call prayer, praise and pitch. And then I'm saying to everyone, over to you. Do one-on-ones, catch up with people. We're giving you plenty of white space, because you don't have a lot of white space when you've got 3 or 4 kids. Quite a few of our families homeschool, and a lot of them are tradies, and so they're busy. So I'm just trying to give them as much white space as possible to then create opportunities for them to do the works of ministry, rather than me saying, here it all is in a box, go and do these 10 different things. And people are starting to catch that vision, I think.
Yeah, okay. A lot of churches often run, so I know, I think I heard you use the phrase, a kind of open cut mining. So that kind of idea of how do you get as contact with as many people as you can, that kind of large event. So often with churches, it's a carols event that they put on in order to draw people in and make themselves known in the community. Are there things that you guys have done that have been helpful in that area, or are they particular things that you have shied away from doing in order to focus on more personal relationship ones? What's been your experience?
Yeah, we haven't done things like that, but we have said to people, because it takes a lot of energy. Our core group is still fairly small, yet we've got a lot of tourists. So core group people are going to be doing a lot of the stuff. But we've said, find a good carol service in the area that's run well and invite your friends and have dinner with them afterwards, because you won't need to be packing up or running the event. You've got time to spend with your friends who aren't Christian. So outsource, downsize and outsource. That's what I say. Yeah. So we have really done that. We don't run programs, but we're finding things in the community that are happening that we can attach ourselves to, like parasites that we are. And we're trying to say, find those things that are high impact once you get to know relationships, but that are low cost because they're already running. I think that's what we've been doing.
We haven't gone for too many of the big events. We've done kind of like local stalls and markets and carols. There's a big community carols thing, so people just go along to that. We've mainly kind of particularly tried to work through via the kids ministry. That's been a big thing kind of for us to try and break in kids-wise. A lot of the churches in our area haven't connected for whatever reason with the younger end of town, and so that's particularly where we've invested a lot of energy. So having a kids church from the start, having a kind of an afternoon kids youth group, teaching scripture in the local primary schools. Just try to make everything like kid friendly. So if there's any young families we connect with, that's particularly where we're going to spend our energy connecting, because that's particularly who our core group we're all married and just popping out kids. So
okay. Yeah, look, I'll ask this question, but I suspect there'll just be silence in response. You won't have anything to say on this. What things have you tried that haven't worked? I know it'll be a very short conversation.
Is it anything you've tried nothing, or because nothing's worked? Everything's worked.
You tell me. What things you tried to look back on and think, actually, that was a nice idea, but it didn't really play out, and just analyse for us why that was.
We did where we were meeting. It was a great sports centre, and it had a Friday night meal that people could pay for with big television screens watching the footy and buy a beer. So we don't have RSL clubs like you do over there, and so it's kind of a mini version of that. And so we started going along to those meals, trying to get to know people, but I think there was a deep, not hostility, but a deep indifference If you're sitting having a meal together, we had maybe 6 or 7 of us, and we'll buy a meal. No one really wanted, other people were very suspicious. They're not there to have a conversation with you. We felt strongly. There is something about Perth and working class Perth that has a hard secularism to it that is kind of confronting. There's no, so we don't have much in-school scripture. It's not a long-term tradition, and there's not an expectation of here's the local church kind of thing, especially in a working class situation. So we tried that, and it didn't really work as well as we'd thought it might work, because I thought run a meal, it would actually be a good social lubricant, but it didn't turn out to be as much as we thought. So that's one spectacular failure.
We tried work pretty hard with advertising, and particularly trying to target the working class people. So when we first got there, we wanted to invite as many people to our public launch as we could. So we got little beer coasters printed up for all the pubs and clubs, and I think it was the time that the Lara Bingle "Where the Bloody Hell Are Ya" campaign was. So we just had these posters that said, "Not another bloody church, Coast Evangelical Church," and another one, "If Jesus was an Aussie, he'd turn water into beer," and that just kind of made people just think we're a bit weird, I think. So I don't know, it just kind of seemed like a good idea at the time, you know. Another thing we've tried that hasn't been that successful was there's a large Indigenous population, and one of the families at church very well connected in there, and a lot of the kids are very happy to get out of their homes for the afternoon and come to church. So a couple of minibuses would bring several kids from the local mission along, and that was great for connecting, but kind of managing the chaos of that, we had to kind of scale back because that wasn't really working for a whole bunch of reasons, and so we've had to scale back on that. There's no problem getting kids there. There's just a matter of maintaining our ability to keep renting the venue. And that. Another thing that has not worked for me is, so I play soccer, not very well, but I'm pretty passionate about it. But I tried to think, you know what, I'll get respect. You know, I play in the defence, so we're going to be the Iron Curtain. Nothing gets through. We're going to be hard. All that blah blah blah. And all the guys in my team are like tradies, builders, all that knockabout guys. And one of the guys from church, he's just a lovely, excellent Christian man. And he moved into the same street as the builder on my team. And the next week, the builder comes up and says, "That guy, he's just like the nicest guy in the whole world. Like, he had us over for a barbecue. He moved in, he gave us over for a barbecue. He gave us free fish. Oh, he's unreal. He goes to your church, doesn't he?" And I'm like, "I caught those fish that he gave you. I'm too busy trying to be hard. I should have just given you the fish."
Yeah, for yourself.
So just in terms of connecting with guys, that just like loving. Loving is what people are gonna resonate with more. So
they don't want to be played, do they?
No.
And that's the thing for me, is like, it's just if you hang around the most authentic man in the world, Jesus, long enough, some of that authenticity will rub off in that sense, and maybe that's just good enough. And we also have a big Indigenous population in Midland, but very hard to reach. They've been worn out by being trying to reach by a couple of hardcore Pentecostal churches, and they're deeply suspicious. But interestingly, one of our guys works in the crisis accommodation in Midland. So what we've decided, we've got people that do work in prison fellowship. We've got guys who work in crisis care. My wife is a clean psych. We have quite a few people who work in strong helping areas in Midland, and so we say our job is to equip them in their context that we're not going to get into, to be godly and authentic in such a way that people will have conversations with them. Whether that brings people in, it isn't necessarily happening, but it's certainly raising questions in people's minds when they meet Christians who are don't feel like they're angling. I think is probably the term I would put.
Yeah, and look, that's a nice kind of segue into this question, because you don't want to reduce everything to a metric, do you? And it's really hard. Ministry is not like that, where you can measure things very precisely most of the time. But for you both, how is it you gauge whether you've broken into the community or not, whether there's kind of movement forward on that? What indicators are you looking for?
A couple for us would be, first one would be prayer. Like, are our people praying regularly for their mates who don't know Jesus yet? And do you see that happening in their home groups? Secondly would be attendance at church. How many number of kind of first visits are we getting? How many number of kind of third visits are we getting? Like, are there new people, you know, coming back for more and kind of connecting in? Yeah. And for us, it's about one of the things we're trying to measure is the percentage of people who live in our region that we've actually had some connection with. And then there's kind of anecdotal. These aren't real metrics, but anecdotally, it's like when you meet someone and you say what church you go to, you get a lot less, what's that? And a little more, oh, is that where so-and-so goes, or is that the one at the school? So anecdotally, there's a little more, at least a recognition of the church being part of the landscape in town.
Yeah. Yep.
Look, I think one of the things I want to watch out for is that we don't become the middle-class enclave in a working-class area. Though our area is changing, it is gentrifying a little. One of the things, there's a chap, there you go, a bloke, who called Tim, who's come from a very, very, almost like a sect kind of hyper-Pentecost, unreconstructed early 20th century Pentecostalism kind of background, who came out of that, and he can reach anyone. He's been in prison, he's married, he's got a little one, and he became a Christian, and he can walk down to the park and people just flock to him. And he tried to engage with us. Well, we said, why don't you just set up that household group that you want to set up, Tim? Because everyone seems to come to your house and talk about Jesus. And he struggled to be able to do that with us in a meaningful way. He'll do it for a while and then he'll bust, and then you won't see him for a long time, because traditional ways of doing church just don't do it for him anymore. Yet we've wanted to say the test of whether your group that has confessed in Christ and you're baptizing next week, because there's a lot of them, is whether they in turn, in the end, want to serve others, not just be served. And that would be a sign for us that people are actually truly converted, that they love being with God's people, whether or not they're different to them, and we would mutually serve each other. And we still find that that person who's never been churched, who's from a bad background, the hardest group to reach. We do pray for them. One of our guys works alongside some of them. He employs some of them, some guys from a local drug rehab centre for his landscaping business. So he has opportunities to speak and introduce them to some of his other friends from church. So there are things happening, but they don't solidify around people saying, we're part of the body here that meets at this stage.
Yep. Now, as you map out your years, you think, and probably, I don't know, you guys might be more organised than me. I would be getting to about this stage maybe, but I suspect you guys are 3 or 4 years ahead in your planning. As you map out your years to talk about churches and your areas, how do these things play into your planning in terms of thinking about outreach, thinking about time for people, programs, all those kind of things? How does it play out? Go to you, Chris.
Yeah. We kind of have a few kind of big mission phases throughout the year that kind of try and match the kind of vibe and flow of the town, being quite a seasonal town. So summer is just the town's 3 times as big as normal, filled with kind of holiday makers. That's quite hard to connect with locals in that time. But the one way that there is good connection with locals is the teenagers have been connected into this summer mission that SUFM run, like a team version of that, and we've got good connection now. Some of our people are on that team, so going with the summer vibe, they join the team, and then we see hopefully a bit of connection with the youth. Then you kind of got the lead up to Easter as a big time for us to try and connect with people, because this is when the transient nature of town, people are moving in, they've found work, or they're doing the sea change thing. So they're moving to the area, so we've got to try and work out how to connect with the people new to the area or looking for a fresh start. So we do some kind of connecting event things and make sure we're praying for people in the lead up to Easter services with some follow-up. Then the next kind of big season for us is when daylight savings reboots, because the town is real slow in winter, and that's when people start to come out of their shell and look for something. So that's when we do our big evangelistic kind of push. We close down our midweek home groups and encourage everyone to go to a locale where we do our 4-week kind of evangelistic course. Bring your friends, and then the lead up to Christmas, another time for us where we get to invite people who seem a bit more open to come to church at Christmas. So we try and roll with the kind of seasonal flow of our town as best we can, and then all the time during the year, kind of under that, we're mainly working through our small groups, our home groups. So the big kind of pattern we try and encourage is prayer, particularly for 3 people. Work out how to connect your 3 non-Christian mates with a Christian mate, get them meeting Christians. Then the third thing is just share something of yourself with them. They got to at least know you're Christian or go to church, or a bit about your story or a bit about Jesus, and then bring them to something. Bring them to something where they can hear about Jesus. So that's pray, connect, share, and bring. And that's kind of all year round.
Yeah, nice. Steve?
Yeah, I feel we're a long way back from that, to be honest. One of the things we have is, because we do find ourselves to be a bit regional, and people come from not long distances, but they may come from a couple, several kilometres away at least, and then work maybe 10 kilometres the other side of that. The connection points aren't as natural to meet someone else from your church, because you could be trying to bring someone 20 kilometres to meet your mates, and say that's not going to be a regular occurrence. We have thought that we want to become a hub in Midland that plants out. That is crucial to what we want to do, but we have said we don't care what that plant needs. That doesn't need to look traditional. So with this other guy, Tim, what I was hoping was that we could be the umbilical cord to him, who could reach a crowd of people that we rarely can reach, that kind of not even working class, but an underclass that exists in Midland that is just, 5th generation welfare, in and out of prison, and he's good at reaching that. We're not, but we've got a few people who are keen to be involved in that kind of ministry. And I'm kind of happy to say, you don't have to turn up on a Sunday. We never have to see you on a Sunday, but we'll meet up to pray and talk and think, and we'll be an umbilical cord of resource to you in your household setting or whatever you're trying to do. And I'm still looking, there's a couple of younger people that would be keen to do that long term, and I'd like to think about how we could support them without them ever having to turn up on Sunday. And that's probably something. We don't have, it doesn't feel as much as if Midland has a core centre to which you can go to and find people. And Christmas and Easter, what I've noticed, and maybe this isn't just true of me, as I've spoken anecdotally, Easter seems to be the last holiday in the year where all our Christian people from church go away. Easter, the last 2 years, has been the lowest attended service of anyone. So if you're planning to bring all these non-Christians to meet Christians on Easter Sunday, you could be outnumbered, and well, you're not going to be. It seems that everyone goes away for those 4 days.
They'll come to Forster.
It's tricky, isn't it? Well, look, just finally before we move on to questions, we've got a number of questions coming through, and we've got about 20 minutes to go, and so we'll try and get through a few of them. Can I just quickly, for you guys, resources or models of that you have drawn on? So models of other churches who are doing things that you kind of think that, that's something we have learned off, or books you've read that's been very helpful on this topic. Any ideas, suggestions for people?
I wish I read more books.
I read a book once. Vastly overrated. Chris, do you want to fire away, or are you going to?
No, that's a lot better to say.
Read a book. Look, I obviously come from deep house church movement to begin with 10 years ago. And if you've been reading my blog at the humbly named StephenMcAlpine.com, you'll realise I'm talking about my missional journey. I've left a lot of that hardcore household behind, but there were good things I learned in that. And one of the things was, freeing up the time to be able to spend time with other people to go and do mission together, but also that don't wait until you love each other well to go and do mission together. Doing mission together will cast you onto prayer and love in a way that you had no idea. It will the love will happen as you do life and mission together. Don't wait for those things to be the magic bullet and then we're ready now. As you do it, God will grow you, change you. That was crucial to me, I think. Getting that sense of how do you do things sustainably for 20 years, not how do I every year go through the life cycle of everyone's happy at the start of the year and worn out by August. And Perth, for example, has 2 periods of the year, say start of December through to February, where not much gets done. It's stinking hot, it's dry, it's 40 degrees, and then winter is cold enough in Perth for everyone to get sick. So you have this July, August where everyone's been sick, and you have 2, maybe 5 months of the year where everything seems to go, ugh. And if you've geared your church programs and ways of doing things around the spring, happy, joy times, and you're running at that level, there's 5 months in the year where everyone isn't going to be able to do anything. So to say, each church low-key, long-term, sustainable enough at the levels of the bad times of the year, and that might actually give you some traction in the good times of the year. So for me, books that I've read, I guess, I was in the crowded house, so I did think Total Church was a good book, and having had a hand in writing a little bit of it, the thing that got me more than anything over there was just that ability to do mission together in a way that grew you as a Christian as you did it, rather than wait to grow as a Christian before you do mission. It just fast-tracked everything, and I think that was a key thing that we learned, that and just doing it long-term, low-key, somewhere long enough, and that was crucial.
Yeah. I think Steve stole all my books. They're all on his shelf behind him.
Oh yeah, that's right.
All mine are behind me.
Yeah.
No, but I think one of the biggest things I think for us has just been growing in our conviction about what people face without Christ forever. If you got that, you just do whatever you need to do. Like if you know where they're headed without Christ, and you know the greatest commandments are to love God and love people. I don't want to try and just sound cheesy or simplistic, whatever, but honestly, if you've got the convictions about those things, I think the rest will flow. You'll work out how to connect with your mate and help him be introduced to Jesus. You will. So if we keep growing our people in that conviction, I think the rest should flow.
Could I add in there? Sorry. What we've discovered and what we said about church when we planted it was that we're going to grow it evangelistically to a level that hasn't happened as we'd have hoped. But what we have, reluctantly come to admit is that a lot of what we're doing is church rehab. And if you think of a swing, right, when your kid's on a swing, they go back that much to go forward that much. And the more you pull them back deeper, the further forward they're going to go. And what I've found with the Christians that are coming to our church and saying we haven't been to church for so many years, or I've never heard the Bible preached before, that you got up and went through Daniel, or you used the catechism, what's that? I found my confidence is as I bring them deeper this way, they'll push further out that way. The gospel has to be something that they think is actually worth giving their lives for. They have to want that. They have to want that Jesus is the answer to all of their issues as much as he is to everyone else's. And I think sometimes we assume they're Christians, they just think Jesus is the solution to everything. But actually, as you mine into their lives, you realize they don't think Jesus is the solution. They've got other solutions. And once you work hard to disciple them to get there, they do tend to swing out further that way. And take braver steps to evangelize people.
So we had a good question from James coming on this. His question was, how do you help people go from making friends in the local community to actually sharing the gospel with them, and how do you bridge that gap between community contact and gospel impact? Thoughts on that?
Chris?
We just encourage them to bring their mates to anything. So bring their mate to their home group. Our home groups are open to anyone. Bring their mate to some kind of low-key gathering that we might host, bonfires and stuff like that. Fellowship bonfires. There's no real content there. It's just come and have a barbecue and a bonfire and do all drinks and meet some blokes. Every Sunday, we hope is accessible to the person checking out spiritual things. So we don't talk about them, but we talk to them, when they come. But it's mainly just if people got that conviction, that prayerfulness, and their desire is to connect them with Jesus, then they'll just make the most of the opportunities to introduce them to Christians, either informally or some of the connecting events we've got, and hopefully church and or home group or the evangelistic series. So I think the key word we just try and use is bring. Just bring them. Bring your mates. Come, invite them to come with you.
Do either of you aim, a question we've had, Flickton, do you aim strategically to win men in order to win the whole family? Do you subscribe to that idea? And if so, any ideas on reaching men in the community? And if not, what's your problem?
No, we don't. We don't. We don't. We live 80% of the kids are from broken or blended families, so who knows where the dads are? Yeah. That's not gonna work. So, and that hasn't really been our strategy.
Yeah.
Oh, we've been working. If I would give my swing analogy of going back, we've been working hard on our men to step up to the plate as men and lead their families well, and then model that to some of their friends. And we've got one of our leaders who used to be the local standover guy for the druggies. He's a great leader at anything he does, so obviously he was very good at that. But when he got converted, he runs a shed night at his house. So, there are, as I think about it, there are things that happen. He also attends, there's a local drug rehab place here called Shalom House, which is quite well known in Western Australia. It's in the newspaper all the time because it's the best. It's got the best non-recidivism rate of any drug rehab in Australia. It's run by an ex-bikie called Pete Lyndon James, and he runs a shed night too. He's got a great name for it. It's called Shed Happens, and we can't steal that name. But we've found that as we get to know the men in our group who would be what I call sub-Christian, that they've never really thought about the gospel, but they've come along, and we're saying, guys, step up to the plate. Where are you, oh Adam? That's dragged the water level up for everyone, and it's also made them much more, it's made them braver in the workplaces. Some of our guys, ironically, he is the academic. But he's an academic in the best field you could ever be an academic in if you're a bogan. He's a racing car designer at one of the universities.
Yeah.
And his mission field are those 20 young engineering students who he gets to spend all his time with, pray with. Now, this is 25, 30 kilometres away from Midland, but we just go, you're the guy that can reach them. You're the papa bear in their lives. Step up to the plate as the man, and it's starting to work. I think he's had great conversations with them. He's praying with them, and they went to England recently for the World Championships for the universities, and he got to spend a lot of time talking with these guys with the gospel. And so, in one sense, we're seeing our men in the situations they're in, and we're trying to encourage them and equip them to stand up to be men, and that's having a flow-on effect in their work settings, I think.
Yeah, that's good. Just from a different angle, we've had a question come in. The question is, person's bumped into a bunch of people who suffer from pretty severe depression. So the idea of community is really scary for them. A whole bunch of people who they don't know, walking into a context they don't understand. Have you got tips on how to make community more inviting, less scary for people who don't necessarily want it, although we know they need it? Any thoughts on that?
we got a bunch of people who won't come to the public gathering on a Sunday because of anxiety, depression, they can't do the whole public space thing, and so our home groups are like a place where a bunch of people who struggle with mental health issues have connected in, and so I suppose just having open home groups is one of the things we've done to try and address that.
Yeah, it's good. So smaller, more relationally connected, so they know the people already, Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
sorry,
I think, I mean, my wife obviously being a clin psych, you know, 50% of her week is seeing people with high anxiety levels. I think our belief that our community is great and it's fantastic to be around lots of people you know and love, that, you know, that's people's nightmare if they're suffering anxiety. And so, you know, it's they'd prefer death by fire than going into that kind of community. And I actually think because we're in a mental health crisis in Australia, it's long-term, low-key one-on-ones, couple of people catching up, is going to be the thing that you have to foster, and then you're going to have to feed your people the right resources and tools to be able to go and catch up with those kind of people, on the understanding that it isn't their job to be their psychologist. And so it's not the church's job to be the psychologist for someone with anxiety, but the church's job to support that person in what they're going through. You've got to know the limits of your ability as a church and as a community, and then you have to refer on at certain levels and just say, the longer you do this, the longer you stay in one place and do church, the more chance there is of those people being able to, to creep forward and get to know a few more people. But you've got to just do it long term, and you just don't have to do it for 20 years. You just might have to be in that church for 20 years.
That sounds like you as well. There's not a cookie-cutter solution to how people engage with the Christian community. It's for some people, Sundays is a time of great joy, others it's a time of great anxiety, but there are other avenues in which to connect and grow and engage with God's Word and God's people as well. Okay, a question from David has come in. What do you do in a situation where a community is emerging, that is growth corridors in metropolitan cities, where people are moving in, they're often aspirational as well, is my suspicion of places I know in Brisbane where I live and Sydney where I was. What things do you do in those emerging, I suspect Midlands might be a little bit like that, Steve, from what you've been saying. Any tips on that?
As in, how do you reach those people?
Yeah, what do you do when community is forming around you in order to be part of that?
Yeah, well, it's ironic it's just starting because there's a whole, Midland is on the edge of a whole area of the Swan Valley where there's been a lot of vineyards and small holding farms, and a lot of those are becoming, they're all blocked out now and they're all marked out for houses. So maybe we're about at the start of that process because Midland isn't the place you go to be aspirational. It wasn't. The northern and southern corridors were, and now that they're so far north and so far south, people have realised there's a lot of land. Like Midland is only 22 minutes by the train from the centre of the CBD of Perth, yet it feels a lot further. So I think that's our next move, is to say, as those houses get built, there's going to be people living in them who may be aspirational, but their aspirations won't be driving them as quickly and as fast as people in the northern and southern corridors. There will be time. It won't be a dormitory suburb like many of those northern and southern corridors are. So I would be keen to say, if enough, maybe some of our people, and this would happen, could buy a house in that area and move in there and get to know their neighbours well there, because we do have a lot of younger people coming through who want to buy a house, and that area is going to be affordable. And it could be that they could be one of those umbilical cord household groups for a while, that they can come on Sunday if they like, but they don't have to, but they're part of our network and they're part of our people we pray for, and we just feed resources to them to get to embed themselves in that suburb and get to know people and not drag them along to church first thing, but just to get to know them and see who they are. So I think there's about 400 or 500 houses going up close by, And I think that would be the place to say to a couple of our young couples, if you're looking to buy a house, you want to stay near Midland, do it together, because if you're the lonesome person dying on the hill, it's not so good. But you know, if there's 4 or 5 of you, you've got community there already to which you can bring people who are looking for community into. So
yeah,
that's more a thing we'll look at in the future, I think.
Yeah. Chris, can I ask you a different question? Not sure how, in terms of where you're at in Forster and what the surrounds are, but we had a question come in about how do you connect with different ethnic groups and Australians living in chronic poverty? If you had, in Forster, have you had much experience or exposure to that, breaking into that?
Yeah, so it's pretty much white-bread Australia with a large Indigenous population as well. So it's not overly multicultural. In terms of the poverty, it is a very low socioeconomic area we're in, and one of the things we've tried is to start running a cap money course, which is a kind of free money management course, just 3 sessions in partnership with Christians Against Poverty.
Is that something you can buy or find online? Where would you find that?
Just type in Cap Money Australia.
CAP, yep.
CAP, Christians Against Poverty. And you can get trained as a money coach. So it's a day's worth of training, and then it's a kind of video-based course, just helping people work out basic budgets and helping them work out a system so they can get out of debt. And if they're in severe debt, the Christians Against Poverty can go into that with kind of against their creditors to try and get them a good deal and a repayment plan to help people get out of poverty, basically. So that's one of the ways we've tried to connect with that issue. It's hasn't had as much momentum as we would have liked, so we've got to work out how to make that resource more readily available. So going through community centres and neighbourhood centres and stuff like that to try and make people aware of it. The problem is people who are generally broke don't like doing courses and doing spreadsheets and budgets. It's a bit of a disconnect. We're trying to work out how to bridge that.
Yeah. Gentlemen, any final remarks before we wind up? Anything else you'd like to add, or encourage people who are planting and leading churches and in churches in breaking into their communities?
Do it.
Just be there long enough. Maybe that's people to live somewhere for 20 years. I mean, if you're 30 and you're watching this, 20 years ago you were 10. But, you know, I've lived in this area, in this house actually, for 17 years. We're moving next year, but somewhere local as well. But to be somewhere long enough that you are a face and there's a name to your face as well. I think we just don't try something long enough anymore. And in my non-aspirational suburb setting, people say, oh, people move all the time. They actually don't in where I live. People live here for a long time. Their aspiration is that the West Coast Eagles or the Dockers will win the grand final and that they can get a carton on a Friday night. You know, they're not looking to put their kids necessarily through, you know, the latest this or that or whatever. They're pretty settled here and they're going to stay here. And I think living there long enough helps.
Yeah. Also, it is the long, slow burn relationships are important to keep chipping away at, and in the meantime, you got to keep working through the existing relational networks that people have. And if you got people in your church who don't have any non-Christian friends, you need to help them work out how they're gonna get some.
Gentlemen, that's been really helpful, really practical advice and wisdom today. Thank you both very much for your time today. Thanks, Steve, over in Perth.
Yeah.
And thank you, Chris.
No worries.
If you would like to support Forster Church, Chris Ekins has a house full of beer coasters. You can buy them for $55 each if you want to donate to Forster. Anyway, look, gents, it's been great to have you. I am going to throw back to Ben McElpine. And just before I do throw it back to Ben, this is Ben's last time with us. Sadly, he's moving on, but doing an exciting job over at Eternity Magazine as the deputy editor there. So thank you, Ben, for all your hard work, and I'll throw back to you now, mate.
My pleasure, Derek. Although I didn't do anywhere near the hard work that you and Chris and Steve just did. Thanks very much, gentlemen. I've left your microphones on, so be sure not to say anything impolite in the next couple of minutes. But I left them on in case you want to interact with what I'm about to say, because I know you might exclaim loudly with what I'm about to announce very soon. But before I do that, very quick plug again for EA Insurance. Thanks so much to EA Insurance for getting behind the planner sessions here at Geneva Push every single month. Now, you might want to go onto genevapush.com, planner sessions, and check out more of the past planner sessions we've done. Videos and other resources are available at genevapush.com, planner sessions. Because this one was so good, you're going to want to go back through the archive and see what you've missed previously in the other planner sessions. Now, gentlemen, this is why I've left you on the line, because I'm about to announce what's coming up next in the planner sessions. Evangelism with Wendy Potts. I hope you've got your diary in front of you right now. On the 22nd of September at 9:30 in the morning, you'll be joining Wendy. She'll be in conversation with Kathy Hurd about having conversations about Jesus. You guys have touched on this a little bit about breaking into your community, but Wendy and Kathy are going to dive headlong into this. And in the next planner session for an hour, they're going to be talking on September 22 at 9:30 a.m. about what it says in the title, having conversations about Jesus. If you don't know Wendy, since 2009, she's been employed by our home church, Austinmere Anglican, as evangelism coordinator. She loves introducing people to Jesus and designing creative elements that help the church family engage with the wider community. That is Kathy and Wendy's chat coming up next. So what you want to do then is go to genevapush.com, Chris and Derek and Steve, and register right now.
Oh, totally. Sign me up.
Yeah. Oh, no, there you go. Yeah. That's why I left your microphones on, just for those final words. Sign yourself.
And where can I get this good material? Yeah.
That's right. Where can we find some beer coasters? Please join us next time for all of this. The webinar will kick off again on September 22. I have had a fantastic time being involved with the webinars. Thank you, guys. Be sure again to log in for the next one, September 22 at 9:30 a.m. I'm about to sign off. Have a fantastic day.